for everybody watching and listening on YouTube. Your time and attention is much appreciated. You want to be alert to the goings-on in Europe on the populist uprising front, in Spain, in Poland, in Germany, in the Netherlands, because this is a harbinger of things to come. If it bothers the farmers and the truckers, it's probably wrong. And that seems to me to be an extremely useful rule of thumb, and it's also one you'd think the bloody leftists would adhere to, given their hypothetical concern with the working class, right? Because you can't get more bedrock working class than farmers and truckers. So, and that does seem to me to be a reasonable measurement tool. You know, if the policies are bothering the farmers and making them protest, something is up, because that's just not how farmers operate, not generally. And the same can be said for truckers. When they're goaded into political action, something genuinely rotten is occurring. And you know, with this regard to these sustainable development goals, if you wanted to feed the bloody poor, the first thing you would do is lower energy costs by whatever means necessary. And so if you think you can quintuple energy costs and feed the poor, you're an idiot, or you're malevolent, you know, or you're narcissistically self-serving, or some terrible combination of all of that. You know, and I've traveled extensively with my wife through Eastern Europe in the last years, multiple times, many different countries, meeting with many people. And certainly one of the things I saw was that the survivors of the Soviet regime, which is all those people, are much more sensitive to the dangers posed and the reality of the radical leftist agenda that is sweeping over the Western world in the hypothetical guise of the continuance of liberalism. And that's antennae, and much more likely, as they did in Hungary in consequence, and to Poland in some degree, although not recently, but in Hungary, to favor modes of apprehension and governance that keep the communist specter, that specter of centralized planning, for example, at as much bay as possible. And so that seems to be reflected, for example, in the attitude of the East Germans that you just described toward the globalist utopian quasi-green agenda that we've been discussing. You know, my sense has been quite strong in recent years that the bastion of European civilization, that would be Judeo-Christian civilization in Europe, is now shifted to Eastern Europe rather than Western Europe. And, you know, with the UK playing a rather ambivalent role in that regard, because it's a country that's very split, with the Brexit people more aligned with the Eastern Europeans, and the Labour Party, which is most likely to be the next government, much more aligned with the globalist utopians in Brussels. It's incumbent on us, if we're facing political or ideological strategies that we don't agree with, to find our way forward in a manner that doesn't throw the baby out with the bathwater. And so, well, and then you see the example in the Netherlands too of the fact that the kinds of protests that, it hasn't been as effective in Canada, by the way, but although we'll see what the long-term consequences are in the next election. You know, you have shown in the Netherlands, the farmers there certainly showed that these wide-scale protests, civil protests, and they have been markedly civil, like they were in Canada, can and do have a walloping impact on the structures of governance. And so, you know, maybe we need to take something approximating a 5-year view of this, you know, that this is the beginning of something new, and we don't want to get too hot and bothered about doing anything too radically stupid, and we can let the electoral process play itself out.
Our protests in the last week, I mean, we had probably 200,000 farmers and tractors out on the roads. Mm-hmm. And we had so many normal workers out, the truck drivers were out on the streets, and it was so friendly.